She was supposed to walk down the aisle in pearls and perfection, heiress to $1 billion empire, America's sweetheart bride. Instead, Lucy Harrington vanished in her designer heels, tearing through the forest in a wedding gown, running not just from a marriage, but from a life that never felt like hers. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere, face to snout with a wild bear, her luck runs out, until a rugged stranger appears from the trees with a barking dog and a burning flare. Daniel Cole doesn't have much, a quiet farm, calloused hands, and a heart hardened by loss. He never expected to save a stranger, let alone one with secret tabloid headlines and a past worth millions. She says she's just Lucy. He pretends to believe her, but when hiding turns into healing and chores become stolen moments, the runaway bride and the humble farmer discover a rare kind of freedom in each other, yet the world won't let them stay hidden forever. In a whirlwind of dusty roads, carnival lights, and quiet porch confessions, two hearts collide in a love story neither expected. But when the past comes knocking, will they choose the life they ran from or the one they've begun to grow together? The wind howled through the pine-covered hills as if it too wanted to run. Lucy Harrington's veil ripped free, sailing behind her like a torn flag of surrender. Her satin heels were clenched in one hand, bouquet abandoned somewhere back near the luxury sedan. She left idling on the mountain overlook. Mud splashed up her legs. Pine needles clung to the hem of her wedding gown. Still she ran. Branches scratched at her arms, thorns tugged at silk and skin, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. Every step away from that church, from the gleaming cameras, the rigid vows, and the man waiting at the altar, was a step toward something, anything that felt real. Lucy wasn't sure how far she'd gone when the laughter bubbled out. It wasn't joyful. It was the kind of breathless, hysterical laugh you let out when you're dangling by a thread. She stumbled to a stop near a creek, gasping for air, legs trembling. Her reflection in the water was a ghost in tulle, face flushed, mascara smudged, hair tangled. "I've lost my damn mind," she whispered to the trees. A twig snapped. Lucy froze. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she saw the shape, brown, lumbering, low to the ground. A bear, not a cartoon or a zoo teddy, a real bear, massive and sniffing the air like it had caught a scent it liked. She took a step back, twig cracking beneath her bare foot. The bear's head jerked toward her. Lucy's heart leapt into her throat. "No, no, no," she whispered, clutching her heels like a ridiculous weapon. "This is not how I die. Not in a wedding dress. Not today." She turned and bolted. The bear moved. Her scream tore through the woods, shrill and wild. Trees blurred past. Her veil caught in a branch and yanked her backward, nearly pulling her off her feet. She ripped it free, stumbling forward again, and crashed into something solid. Arms caught her, strong, firm, real. "Whoa there," a voice said. "Easy." Lucy's eyes locked on the man in front of her. Broad shoulders beneath a flannel shirt, tan skin, stubble-lined jaw, eyes like storm clouds. He smelled like smoke and cedar. She barely had time to process him before his gaze snapped over her shoulder. "Get behind me." "What?" "Why, now." He stepped forward, pulling something from his belt. It was a flare, bright red. He struck it against a rock. It sparked to life with a violent hiss. The bear, now just yards away, halted, snarling at the light and noise. Beside the man, a shaggy old dog barked furiously, standing its ground like a soldier. The flare hissed louder. The bear, finally deciding the meal wasn't worth the mess, backed away into the woods. Lucy collapsed to her knees in the dirt. "Jesus," she breathed, "you just saved my life." The man crouched beside her. "You all right?" She looked up, trying to compose herself. "Physically, I think so. Emotionally, that's still TBD." He offered his hand. She took it. "Name's Daniel," he said. "Daniel Cole. And you are?" She hesitated. "Lucy. Just Lucy." His eyes flicked over the mud-streaked dress, the smudged makeup, the missing shoes. But he didn't ask. He just nodded. "You're a long way from the bridal suite, Lucy." "I guess I took a wrong turn," she said, forcing a smile. Daniel tilted his head. "Are you running from something?" "Running to something," she corrected. "Just not sure what yet." Daniel studied her a moment, then turned toward the dog. "Come on, buddy, let's get her out of here." Lucy followed, grateful and wary all at once. She didn't know where she was going, but something told her she'd just collided with the beginning of the story she didn't even know she was chasing. The old pickup truck rumbled down a gravel road, weaving past golden fields and weathered fences. Dust curled in its wake, catching the sunlight like powder over the quiet hills. Inside, Lucy sat rigid in the passenger seat, still barefoot, still stained in mud and confusion. Daniel drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually near the gearshift. His dog, Buddy, perched happily between them, tongue lolling, tail thumping against Lucy's arm. She glanced at the creature with a nervous smile. "He doesn't bite, does he?" "Only his food," Daniel replied, "and sometimes the corner of my boots." Lucy tried to smile, but the weight of the past few hours was catching up to her. Her body ached, her heart thudded like a runaway train, and her dress, now a wrinkled, torn parody of bridal elegance, felt like a costume she'd been trying to take off for years. They passed rows of corn and low hills dotted with oak trees. Birds circled lazily overhead. The world here felt slower, like it hadn't yet caught up to the frantic pace of the one she left behind. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "Back to my place," Daniel said. "Just to get cleaned up, rest. Town's another 10 miles out, but I figure you could use a minute to breathe." She should have hesitated. Instead, she nodded. They turned down a long dirt driveway bordered by wildflowers. The house was simple, 2 stories with a wide porch and peeling paint. A red barn sat in the distance, its roof slightly crooked but proud. Chickens darted through the grass. "This is yours?" she asked. "Yep, my dad built most of it with his own hands. I've been keeping it alive since he passed." He parked the truck near the porch and hopped out. Lucy followed, her feet careful on the gravel. Daniel handed her a towel and a bottle of water before heading toward the house. "You can use the bathroom to clean up. First door on the left. There's a change of clothes inside, probably a bit big, but it'll beat wearing a bridal gown through a cow pasture." She paused at the door, turning to him. "Thank you, Daniel." He shrugged. "Wasn't about to let you become bear food." Inside, the house was warm and worn. Wooden floors creaked beneath her steps, and the scent of coffee and cedar lingered in the air. In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror. Streaked mascara, wild hair, scratches down her arms. A laugh, bitter and broken, escaped her lips. "Nice wedding, huh?" Outside, Daniel busied himself with the chores he'd neglected. Feeding the chickens, hauling a bale of hay, fixing a loose fence post. But his thoughts kept circling back to the stranger upstairs. He didn't know who Lucy really was, but he knew one thing for sure: she was running. And sometimes you only run that hard when you've got something worth running from. It was only later that Lucy realized how close she'd come to dying. Daniel said nothing as he prepared a small dinner, grilled vegetables, cornbread, and fresh lemonade. She'd changed into an old flannel shirt and sweatpants several sizes too big, but they were soft and comforting. She sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun melt into the hills. Daniel joined her a moment later, setting a plate in her lap. "You cook, too?" she asked, surprised. He grinned. "I'm a man of many talents. Some are more useful than others." They ate in comfortable silence until Lucy finally asked the question that had been hovering. "How'd you know what to do with the bear, I mean?" Daniel leaned back, gaze distant. "Grew up out here. Bears don't usually bother people unless they're hungry or surprised. Flare's a trick my old man taught me. Beats a rifle, especially when you're close." "So you're just out here saving runaway brides every other Tuesday?" He chuckled. "You're my first." Lucy glanced at him, then away. The truth was hot on her tongue, but she held it in. If she told him who she really was, the scandal, the money, the reason she fled, it would change everything. "Thanks again," she said softly. "You already said that." "Well, I mean it again." Their eyes met. For a moment, everything else faded. The ruined wedding, the angry family, the cameras waiting to devour her story. Here, there was only a man, a dog, and a porch swing overlooking a world that didn't care about wealth or headlines. Buddy barked once, then curled up by Lucy's feet. "You planning to go back?" Daniel asked, his voice careful. "I don't know," she whispered. "All I know is I couldn't go through with it." He didn't ask more, didn't press. Instead, he stood, collected the plates, and turned to head inside. "You can sleep in the guest room. It's not fancy, but it's quiet." Quiet sounds perfect. He gave a single nod, then disappeared into the house. Lucy sat a little longer, watching the last light disappear behind the trees. Out here, maybe, just maybe, she could remember who she was before the world decided for her. Morning arrived with a rooster's cry and the golden light of dawn spilling through the window. Lucy blinked against it, momentarily forgetting where she was. The room was small but tidy, soft sheets, a wooden dresser, a window that overlooked the fields. For the first time in what felt like years, she'd slept through the night. She padded downstairs, still in the borrowed clothes, and found Daniel in the kitchen. He was standing at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease, Buddy snoozing at his feet. "Morning," he said without looking. "Morning," Lucy replied, feeling like she had wandered into someone else's dream. "There's coffee on the table, cups in the cabinet." She poured herself a mug, the rich smell grounding her more than she expected. "You always cook like this?" "Only when I have royalty in my house." She looked at him sharply. "I meant the wedding dress," he added, smirking. "I've never had anyone show up here dressed like they're late for the royal altar." She chuckled despite herself. "Fair point." After breakfast, Daniel grabbed his boots. "If you want to earn your keep, I could use an extra set of hands with the animals." Lucy blinked. "You're serious?" He raised an eyebrow. "You said you wanted to do something real. Chores don't get more real than shoveling cow crap." She followed him outside, immediately regretting her lack of footwear. The mud welcomed her like a long-lost cousin. Within 5 minutes, she was ankle-deep, shrieking as a curious goat tried to nibble her flannel sleeve. Chickens darted around her legs. A cow stared her down with what felt like judgment. Daniel, meanwhile, moved effortlessly. He tossed feed, refilled troughs, checked on fences, all while pretending not to watch her flail. At one point she tripped and landed flat on her backside in the mud. Daniel turned, stifling a laugh. "You okay, princess?" She looked up at him, mud on her nose, hair stuck to her face, and started laughing. Deep, breathless laughter that left her gasping. "Yeah," she wheezed. "I'm great." Daniel offered her a hand. "You're a disaster." She accepted it. "I think I needed to be." He looked at her, and something passed between them, quiet, unspoken, an understanding. She wasn't just a runaway. She was trying to remember who she was before the headlines, the money, the pressure. Later that afternoon, clouds rolled in like a warning. Daniel looked skyward, jaw tight. "Storms coming, could hit hard." "Do you get those a lot out here?" "Often enough to respect them." "You okay with riding it out here?" Lucy nodded. "I think I trust you more than the Weather Channel." When the rain began, it didn't ease in. It fell, thick and fast, soaking the earth in minutes. The wind howled through the trees. Daniel grabbed extra flashlights, blankets, and supplies and led Lucy to the barn. "It's safer here if we lose power. Plus, Buddy hates storms, always has." The barn was warm with hay and the comforting smells of old wood and animals. Daniel lit a lantern and set it on an upturned crate. Buddy curled up near Lucy's feet. She sat beside a stack of hay bales, watching the rain pour through the gaps in the roof like silver threads. "You really live like this? Every day?" Daniel nodded. "There's peace in it. Things make sense out here. You plant, you water, you harvest. People are harder." "Tell me about it," she muttered. He glanced at her but didn't push. Instead, he handed her a thermos of hot cider. They sat in silence, the storm raging outside like an angry chorus. After a while, Lucy whispered, "I didn't love him." Daniel didn't ask who. "I tried. I told myself it was the smart choice. Safe. A merger disguised as romance. You don't owe me an explanation." She looked at him, surprised. "Most people would want one." "I'm not most people." "No," she said quietly, "you're not." Lightning cracked the sky, and Buddy whimpered. Lucy instinctively reached down and stroked his head. "Have you ever run from anything?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "Once, but it caught up to me." "Was it a bear?" He smirked. "Worse, grief." The barn went quiet again, and then, in the hush that followed thunder, Lucy leaned back against the hay, cider in hand, and whispered, "I think I like it here." Daniel didn't answer, but for the first time since she ran, Lucy didn't feel like she was lost. She felt like she might be almost home. The morning after the storm, the farm smelled of fresh earth and new beginnings. Lucy stood at the edge of a cornfield, borrowed boots squelching in the mud, watching as Daniel inspected the stalks. The sky had cleared, but thunder still echoed faintly in the hills, like the storm didn't want to leave just yet. "You always check your corn this early?" she asked. Daniel looked up, squinting into the sunlight. "Corn's honest. If something's wrong, it tells you." She smirked. "Must be nice. Most people aren't that forthcoming." Daniel tilted his head, as if considering her words. "Neither are you." Touché. She stepped carefully between rows, running her fingers over the tall green leaves. "I used to think I wanted a life full of glamour," she said softly. "Fashion shows, exclusive parties. But they all felt hollow." He didn't respond, just kept walking. "I wasn't even in love with him. I was in love with the idea of being chosen, of fitting into the picture my family always painted for me." Daniel finally turned to her. "And when you didn't fit?" "I tried harder, smiled bigger, agreed more." She exhaled. "Eventually I realized I'd rather disappoint everyone than lose myself entirely." Daniel leaned against the wooden fence bordering the field. Takes guts. People think running is cowardly, but sometimes it's the only way to start over. She walked closer, stopping a few feet from him. You talk like someone who's done it before. I stayed here after my father died, he said, voice steady. I thought I was being strong, holding the place together, but the truth is, I was hiding. This farm was safe, predictable. I knew the rules. And people don't come with rules, Lucy said. He smiled faintly. Exactly. They stood there for a moment, the quiet buzzing with cicadas and wind in the corn. Lucy reached out, plucked a loose silk thread from his flannel sleeve, and said, You know, for someone so quiet, you say a lot. Daniel raised an eyebrow. For someone who crashed into my life wearing a wedding dress, you're not bad at shoveling manure. She laughed, and the sound seemed to shake something loose in both of them. And for the first time, Daniel wondered what it would be like if she stayed. Daniel didn't read the tabloids, but the local diner kept a stack by the register, and that day they were impossible to miss. Where is Lucy Harrington? Runaway heiress vanishes before billion-dollar wedding. Daniel stood frozen in the checkout line, coffee in hand, eyes glued to the front page. There she was, Lucy, or at least the glossy version of her, flawless makeup, sparkling jewelry, and a fiancé who looked more like a politician than a partner. The article painted her as a spoiled, impulsive runaway, a flight risk with a crown and cold feet. Daniel grabbed the paper and paid, in silence. Back at the farm, Lucy was in the barn brushing Buddy. She looked up when he entered, all warm smiles and muddy knees. Hey, she said, I taught Buddy to sit. Sort of. He handed her the paper. The smile vanished. Lucy stared at the cover and for a moment said nothing. Then, with a sigh, she sat on a hay bale, the paper in her lap. I was hoping you wouldn't see that, she said. So it's true? I'm Lucy Harrington, heiress to Harrington Global, daughter of the man who practically owns half the East Coast. Daniel said nothing. His jaw tightened just a little. I didn't mean to lie, she added quickly. I just didn't know how to be Lucy Harrington here. I wanted to be just Lucy. Daniel folded his arms. Why come here at all? I panicked. I saw a road and drove. When the car ran out of gas, I kept going on foot. I didn't know I'd end up in a bear's backyard. He huffed. Small miracle you're not on a milk carton. She looked down. You hate me now. I don't hate you. He sat beside her. I just don't like being lied to. I know, she whispered. I was afraid that the second you knew who I really was, this, whatever this is, would change. Daniel looked at her, eyes steady. You're still the girl who laughed when a goat ate her sleeve. Still the one who fell in the mud and didn't complain. I also come with paparazzi, lawsuits, and a family that thinks love is leverage. He paused. Then maybe they're the ones missing out. She blinked. I'm not walking away, Lucy, he said, but I need you to stop running from them, from yourself, and from me. She swallowed, the truth heavy in her throat. I'll try. Daniel stood, brushing hay from his jeans. That's all I needed to hear. As he walked out of the barn, Lucy looked down at the paper again, then tore it clean in half. She wasn't that girl anymore, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to be. It was just after noon when the calm was shattered. Lucy had just finished rinsing vegetables from the garden when Buddy let out a low, guttural growl. He stood at the front door, ears up, tail rigid. Daniel stepped out onto the porch and saw the dust trail first, an SUV kicking up gravel as it sped down the driveway. Lucy came up behind him, her breath hitched. No, she whispered. They found me. The black vehicle screeched to a halt in front of the house. The door flung open. A tall man in an expensive gray suit stepped out, slim, sharp-jawed, and flanked by two others in dark sunglasses. "Lucy!" the man called, voice practiced and polished. "There you are." Daniel instinctively stepped between them. "Who are you?" "I'm Patrick," the man said coolly, "her fiancé's legal liaison. We've been searching for her." "I'm right here," Lucy said, stepping forward, "and I'm not going back." Patrick sighed like she was an errant child. "Lucy, this is reckless. There are contracts, statements, press fallout. Your father—" "Can call off the dogs," she snapped. "I'm not property." "Lucy, don't make this harder than it has to be. You're jeopardizing more than a wedding. You're jeopardizing the family name." Daniel tensed. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't want to." Patrick turned to him, disdain flashing. "And you are?" "The man who saved her life," Daniel said. A long silence followed. Then Patrick gestured to the guards. "We'll wait by the car. I'll give you 10 minutes, Lucy. After that, we're taking you back, voluntarily or otherwise." They returned to the SUV. Daniel turned to her. "We can't fight them here. Come with me." Lucy didn't hesitate. They ran through the back fields, across the creek, Daniel leading her through a wooded shortcut only locals knew. The sun blazed down and adrenaline carried them faster than fear. Behind them voices shouted, but ahead was a narrow road, and parked there was Daniel's old truck. He threw the door open. "Get in!" As the truck roared to life, Lucy looked back at the only home that ever felt real and prayed it wouldn't be the last time she saw it. The next 3 days blurred into one long chase across back roads, small towns and forgotten diners. They stayed off highways, paid cash, slept in roadside motels with flickering neon signs and curtains that didn't quite close. It felt like something out of an old movie. Two people on the run, barely a step ahead of the world. And somewhere in that chaos, Lucy found freedom. She laughed harder than she had in years, ate greasy burgers with her feet on the dashboard, danced barefoot in a gas station parking lot at midnight, while Daniel fumbled with the radio. They were ghosts, untraceable, unburdened. In one tiny town called Millfield, they stopped at a general store. Lucy, wearing a thrifted sundress and a ball cap, caught Daniel watching her as she pretended to know how to fish in the sporting aisle. "What?" she asked, grinning. "You're different out here," he said. "I am different out here." They sat on a bench outside, sharing a soda. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I wish we could stay like this forever." He hesitated. But I know we can't run forever. Eventually someone's going to catch up." Daniel's hand found hers. "Then let's make every moment count until they do." It was Lucy's idea to go to the fair. They passed a hand-painted sign on the edge of a town, Miller County Fall Festival, one night only. Her eyes lit up. "A fair?" she said, turning to him. "We have to go." Daniel chuckled. "A little flashy, don't you think? Kind of defeats the low-profile plan." "No one's looking for me in line for kettle corn," she insisted. By sunset, they were walking past booths glowing with string lights. Children ran by with cotton candy. Music played from a creaky carousel. The air smelled like fried dough and hay. Lucy wore a second-hand denim jacket and boots. Her hair was braided back loosely, no makeup, no diamonds. Just her. They played ring toss, lost at darts, and shared a funnel cake that left powdered sugar on her nose. Then came the dance. A small stage lit with lanterns, a live band playing old country ballads. Couples moved in slow circles under the stars. Daniel hesitated, hands in his pockets. Lucy held out hers. "Dance with me." He took her hand. They moved gently, her head against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. "I could get used to this," she whispered. "I already have," he said. The song ended, but they didn't stop moving. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, and then he kissed her. Not a rushed kiss, not a goodbye, a kiss that promised something real, something earned. When they finally parted, Lucy smiled and said, "This is the first time I feel like I belong somewhere." Daniel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You belong here, with me." But even as he said it, both of them knew the fair would end, and the real world was coming. The motel room smelled like lavender soap and something faintly sweet, maybe the remnants of kettle corn still clinging to their clothes. Lucy sat cross-legged on the bed, Daniel at the small table scribbling something in a worn notebook. Outside, the town lay quiet under a silver moon, the fair now only a memory behind them. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run?" she asked softly. Daniel looked up. "You'd be married." She shook her head. "No, I'd be imprisoned in pearls." He smiled sadly. "You didn't just run away, Lucy. You broke free." But later that night, when he fell asleep, exhausted and peaceful, Lucy couldn't sleep at all. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at him for a long time, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the way his fingers curled slightly, even in rest. Then, quietly, she stood. She left a note on the pillow. "I love you enough to walk away. I won't let them drag you into this circus. You gave me peace. Now I have to give you back your life. L." She slipped out into the night, a ghost once more. By the time Daniel woke, she was gone. And so was the truck. The days passed in silence. Daniel returned to the farm with Buddy riding shotgun, and the note folded into his jacket pocket like a wound he couldn't stop touching. Lucy was gone. No word, no call, just quiet. He threw himself into work, raking, planting, feeding. The fields didn't ask questions. They didn't care if your heart was broken. They just waited. The porch swing creaked every night when he sat there, as if expecting her. But the gravel driveway remained still. One afternoon, while clearing the edge of the corn rows, Buddy began digging near a patch of sunflowers. Daniel followed and found it. Buried beneath a flat stone was the locket Lucy had worn the first night she arrived. He opened it. Inside was a photo, young Lucy and a woman who had to be her mother, both smiling like they believed in forever. Daniel clenched the locket in his fist and stared at the field, chest heavy with longing and questions. She had walked into his life like lightning and vanished just as fast. But even storms leave something behind. Lucy Harrington reappeared exactly 12 days later on the front page of every major news outlet, but not in the way anyone expected. She wasn't in a gown or behind a podium. She was standing outside her father's towering glass office building, wearing jeans, a windbreaker, and no makeup. A single reporter managed to catch her as she left. "Miss Harrington, where have you been?" "Finding out who I am without all this," she said, "and I've made a decision." Later that afternoon, she sat across from her father in a conference room lined with gold trim and polished stone. He looked older than she remembered, tired, gray at the temples, mouth a hard line. "You humiliated this family," he said. "You've put the company in turmoil." "I walked away from a deal I didn't want," Lucy replied evenly. "If that's humiliation, so be it." He tapped his pen on the desk. "Do you have any idea what you're throwing away?" She pulled a document from her coat pocket. "Yes, I'm relinquishing my stake, all of it." He stared at her. "You're leaving Harrington Global?" "I'm leaving the name, the image, the expectations." "You'll have nothing." "I'll have everything," she said softly. "For the first time." She left the office without looking back. Here are the final 2 chapters of Harvest of the Heart. It was late afternoon when the old pickup rolled down Daniel's dirt road again, only this time he wasn't behind the wheel. Lucy stared out the windshield, her heart pounding louder than the engine. She'd memorized the curves of this road in her sleep, the way the sun filtered through the trees, the creak of the fence that hadn't been fixed. Everything looked exactly the same, and yet everything inside her had changed. She parked near the porch and stepped out. She wore denim overalls and a soft cotton tee. No pearls, no heels, no mask. Buddy barked once and bounded toward her like an old friend. She knelt to hug him, burying her face in his fur. "I missed you too, big guy." The front door opened. Daniel stepped out slowly, a rake still in hand, his eyes squinting against the light. He didn't speak, didn't move. "Hey," Lucy said softly. He didn't answer. "I know I ran," she continued. "I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was break something that mattered. I came back to say, if there's still a place for me here, I'd like to earn it." A beat passed, then another. He walked down the steps, rake forgotten. Wordlessly, he pulled her into his arms. No grand speeches, no demands, just 2 people finding each other again in the only place that ever felt like home. The next morning, they stood together in the field she'd first run through, this time side by side, hands entwined, boots in the dirt. A soft breeze rolled over the land, carrying the scent of fresh-tilled soil and something new. Lucy pulled a small envelope from her pocket. Daniel opened it. Inside was a seed packet. Sunflowers. He looked up at her. "No ring?" he teased. "Not yet," she said, smiling, "but I figured we'd start by planting something together." They knelt down and dug into the earth, side by side. It was simple, honest, rooted, just like the life they were building. Later, they sat on the porch, sharing iced tea and watching the sun dip behind the fields. "I still don't know what I'm doing," she admitted. "None of us do," he replied, "but the good stuff, that's always grown one day at a time." She rested her head on his shoulder. No flashing cameras, no headlines, just laughter, muddy boots, and something that felt a whole lot like forever. And in the field behind them, under the fading light, a single green sprout broke through the dirt, small, defiant, and reaching for the sky.